discovering your purpose. Now, I think this is actually the best of the 4 sessions. It's the most robust. I think you learn the most about yourself from this particular session, right? So, and it always starts off with a hope that we have for you. Our hope is that you'll take a step toward understanding how God uniquely designed you and learn how these traits will help you in fulfilling your destiny. Together, let's discover all that God has planned for our congregation and make a positive difference for the kingdom. By the way, there are a few errors in this particular session that have been pointed out in proofreading, but that's okay. You're the guinea pig, so the new one, next group of people will have a corrected version of it. Just ignore all that stuff. Our hope for you is that you'll understand something really important through this session that a lot of people in church life, I think, miss. Because maybe they feel like they don't have like anything unique to offer. Like I don't have preaching gifts maybe, or I can't sing. I don't really see myself being in the worship team. I don't play an instrument. Because that's a lot of times those gifts, they kind of get the biggest bill in church, right? They get the most attention. But the Bible talks about all kinds of gifts. I mean, right down to cleaning up some stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like doing things like administration. There are many, many gifts. And a lot of folks they sell themselves short because they're always comparing themselves to the prophetic gifts or the teaching gifts or the music gifts and stuff like that. Our hope for you is that by the time you're done with this session, you'll come to see that you probably have more to offer the church than you think you do. As a matter of fact, it's probably true that you probably are more needed than you realize in the church because so many people do sell those things short, And so I just want to tell you, if nobody knew, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but if you knew how to plant things and you were really good at gardening, right? The church is going to look great because of your skill. If it was left up to me doing that, I have a black thumb, it would be terrible. It would look boring. My wife and I have very different ways of decorating. Like I'm very Spartan. I don't care if there's anything on the walls. I really don't. She wants something on about every square inch of the walls. Okay? She likes knickknacks, and so if it was up to her, she'd have those. I don't like knickknacks at all, so I wouldn't even have them. So you wouldn't want me being the gardener. You wouldn't want me being the decorator because I don't have those gifts. I don't have those skills. But if you want a church that looks beautiful and that is presentable and is warm and inviting, you have to have people with those skills. Now, it may not be preaching, it may not be the prophetic gifts, it may not be music gifts, but you can't sell short a guest's first impression when they walk up to the building and see what it looks like. Okay? So those gifts are a lot more important than you think they are. Secondly, every one of you is unique and special and valuable. And nowhere is it written in the Bible that just because I have the preaching gift or prophetic gift or whatever, that I'm somehow more valuable or more useful in the kingdom than you are. That's a crock. That's a fallacy. It's not true. You were created by God in your own uniqueness with your own special gifts and talents and abilities, and God wants to see you use them, not only to serve in the church, but for you to find fulfillment and belonging and feel like you're contributing to the body. And so you are all created to serve, every last one of you. Every member is a minister. Every member should be a minister. All of us were created by God, it says, to make a difference in the life of others. God has a place for you where your unique gifts, personality, passions, and abilities can impact the lives of everyone around you. We believe your life will never make sense until you discover, develop, and fulfill that purpose. I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about tonight. Because you might not realize that this is a spiritual gift. Is anybody familiar with the 5 love languages? Anybody ever read that? Now, if you're married and you haven't read it, you need to. Okay? If you plan to get married and you haven't read it, you need to. If you're newly married, you ought to read it. Because those 5 things are how people receive and process love, right? So for me, I'm a words guy, right? I've talked about this before. I can't remember if someone gave me $1,000. After a year goes by, I'm like, I don't remember. Somebody gave me $1,000. I don't really, not that it wasn't really appreciated. I'll take it, but it doesn't necessarily fill my love tank. No, what fills my love tank is if somebody says, hey, good job, right? You weren't terrible today, That's fine. I'll take it, okay? Conversely, people who have a certain love language, if the opposite thing is given to them, right, they will often take it twice as hard. Right? So the thing that fills them up the most can also hurt them the most, right? Like I could probably tell you, I'm going to sound like a psycho, but I could remember every bad thing my mother ever told me growing up. You know what I'm saying? Because those things left deep scars because my love language is words. Okay? So if my love language was gifts, or if my love language was acts of service or something like that, I probably wouldn't have those same scars because they wouldn't affect me the same way. So I'm sharing that to say, this past week, I've gotten several texts from folks. And I've had a few conversations with folks from around the church. Very random, and you probably thought to yourself when you said those things that you were just being nice. But let me tell you what, those things encouraged me and filled my tank up and gave me energy to go on another week. You know, despite how exhausted I might feel, or despite all the other challenges I'm dealing with. And you might not understand this, but that is a gift from God to be able to encourage another person like that, to be able to fill somebody's love tank. So there are so many ways that you are wired with gifts that you probably didn't even know were gifts, which is why in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, it says, now there are varieties of gifts. And by the way, this is not an exhaustive list in Corinthians when you read it. It's not even close to that. Everybody thinks it is. Like when people talk to me about like fivefold ministry and the 9 spiritual gifts and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, yeah, those are there, but there is so much more. So much more, okay? There are varieties of service. All kinds of ways that you can serve in the body. And every single one of them is just as important, which is why it says, now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it, and all as valuable and as important. So regardless of what you think, those gifts, where they are on the importance scale, let me just tell you, there is no such thing in the body as an importance scale. It just doesn't exist. The Bible does not teach that. Okay? So that's why I always tell people, you know, I'm just like you. You know what I'm saying? I'm a human being too. I got my issues, trust me. I'm no more loved by God or valued by Him or more important to the church than any of you are, okay? We're all in the same boat together. So here are 4 essentials that we should embrace. Number 1, you are extremely valuable to God and to us. I like to put it this way. I am far more concerned about your discipleship than what the church can get from you. Far more concerned. You matter more than what we can get out of you. Now, do we want you to serve? Do we need you to serve? Is it important that you serve? Yeah, oh, of course, absolutely. But you know what? If it comes right down to it, and serving is somehow detrimental to you, I would prefer you don't serve in order to have you be healthy. Okay? Although I believe serving is where we find fulfillment. But people matter more than what they bring to the table. Number 2, every member is a minister. I believe we're all uniquely gifted by God, so why not use those gifts? Okay? Regardless of what they are. Every task is important. I've already touched on this, but like I said, with the gardening or fixing stuff or keeping things clean or doing the books or working in the office or whatever it is, you know, tell you what, I would not go to a church without clean toilets. That's an important task. Okay? And then most importantly, number 4, every member is a 10 in some area. I promise you, every person in this room is better at something than I am. Whatever your thing is, right? Maybe that's, you know, fixing cars, or maybe that's carpentry, or maybe that's, you know, something to do with mathematics or bookkeeping and things like that. Or everybody is a 10 in some area, which means that because I'm not a 10 in every area, you have something to offer that I don't. And I want to find out what that is. I want you to find out what that is. Because can you imagine if all the 10s were operating in their area that's a 10? How powerful that could be? Think about it, okay? Page 19, we're designed to serve. He made you, He made your personality, okay? You are unique in your personality. Listen, I have met people that when I first met them, I thought, man, you are nutty as a fruitcake. But boy, were they good at children's ministry or a youth ministry or a music ministry. Right? God created you. He knew you before you were ever born. He had a plan for your life and a plan for you to fit in the body before you were ever born. Let's figure out what that is together. Number 2, He gives you spiritual gifts, as well as what I would kind of call the practical gifts. We all have spiritual gifts, right? We're Pentecostal. We believe in the gifts of the Spirit. We believe in speaking in tongues. We believe in prophecy and healing and all those things, words of wisdom, words of knowledge. I I wrote an article, and it's on our website. If you go to our website and you go all the way down to the bottom of the first page, you're going to see my blog. If you get a chance, there's an article that I wrote a few years ago called "Are You Afraid of the Gifts of the Holy Spirit?" Number one, you shouldn't be if you're Pentecostal, but when you read that article, I think one of the things you're going to discover is that God wants to use each and every one of us in some way in the moving and the working of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And one of the things that holds us up is that some of us are afraid of those things, or we're afraid we're going to seem silly, or maybe we won't do a good job at it, or whatever. Just read that article. I'd be interested in your feedback. Number 3, he energizes your passions. So you have personality, what makes you unique. You have spiritual gifts. Those are things that God gives you. But all of us also have some things that we're passionate about, okay? I can't be passionate about everything a church does. I just can't. I mean, there are some things that I am passionate about, but I think it's super important to have children's ministry. I'm passionate about having a children's ministry, but there's a reason I'm not a kids pastor, because I have no passion for doing that myself. It's just not something that I've ever seen myself doing or wanted to do. Same thing with youth ministry. I don't have a desire to see it in the church. I'm passionate about having it, but I'm not passionate about doing it myself. It's just not my thing, I was talking to Cheryl about this in the office. I'm not passionate with math or bookkeeping and stuff like that. And I'm sure when I talk to her and Donna about things, I even said this yesterday, I go, I'm probably using the wrong words and the wrong terminologies, because this is just not my thing. I actually kind of hate all that stuff, right? I do it because I'm required to, but I hate it, I don't like it. I'm not passionate about it, but you might be. You might have just a knack for it and be really good at it. And if God has given you a passion for something, if we can figure out where your passion and your gifts kind of collide, and we can get you doing that thing, right? You're going to do it well, and you're going to do it with passion. It's going to be fun for you, which is one of the indicators, by the way, of whether or not you're truly passionate about something, okay? I had some people in my church before that were passionate about recovery group, right? Because they were former drug abusers or former alcoholics, so they were super passionate about that. They had a real heart. I had another family that were super passionate about adoption. That was their thing. My wife, she's passionate about feeding the poor, and she's always done a lot of that throughout our ministry together. I think she's fairly passionate for women's ministry on that, and she's fabulous at it, by the way, and really good at real estate, So she's got her passions. If we can leverage those passions in the church, get her doing the things that she's the most passionate about and have gifts for, she's going to be the happiest, right? She'll be the most fulfilled and the most useful. Which leads us to number 4, he shapes your abilities. God has given you those abilities. That's why I don't know if it's true. I could be full of baloney on this, but I kind of think like when it comes to certain gifts, like music gifts or mathematics and things like that, you ever notice that some people, they just kind of comes easy to them? My son's that way. He's a little math genius, right? He's some of his math's 11th grade math that he's doing. He's been doing it for a couple of years like that. And I look at his math and I just scratch my head go talk to your mother. I don't know. It's just not my thing. I feel like I can get the right answer. I just can't do it the way he wants me to do it. But it comes natural. He reads it one time, and then he doesn't even write it down half the time. He just does it in his head. That I don't understand, right? So he's got abilities in that department, which is why he's back in the tech booth. You know what I'm saying? Let's get him working with that kind of stuff, because he's got that kind of analytical brain. But you know what, though? He's not really an artsy kid. You know what I'm saying? So he may never decide that's really where he wants to be used in the church. But we want to just figure out, if you have some natural abilities, let's leverage those in the church and find out how you can serve. So that's why you have this Your Place to Serve kind of rubric here. It says, we want to help you discover your purpose in life, how you fit on the team at River of Life Church. As you discover how your personality, gifts, passions, and abilities all fit together, you'll find your sweet spot in your fit that will allow you to make a real difference and find fulfillment. Basically what that sweet spot is if you can figure out how God made me, right? For instance, if you're an extroverted person and you have no trouble talking to new people, okay, that's important part of your personality, right? So you might be very useful in spiritual gifts that include talking to other people, right? Things like word of wisdom, word of knowledge, maybe teaching gifts, prophetic gifts, that kind of a thing. What are your passions? Well, maybe you have a passion to teach, right? Or maybe you have an ability to teach. Maybe you were a school teacher. Think about how you could put all those things into the center of that diagram right there and figure out maybe this is the type of ministry where I would really benefit, where I would really, be most useful, okay? And that's what we want to help you figure out through the next kind of half hour of what we're going to talk about, okay? Next page says, you fit in our church. And again, if you have forgotten this from Sunday already, your family plus our church equals one family. We want to see people come and become part of us. And when they do, we become a better us. And once you find your sweet spot, the next step is to find the place where you fit in the church. This is the place where you realize why you were created and what you were created for. It's where you fit. Now, keep in mind there are sometimes people who fit in multiple different places, okay? You will find a few areas that really fit you, other areas where you feel comfortable but aren't your best, and some areas you should leave for someone else to do. Okay, so for instance, I'll just use myself as an example. I took a much larger assessment than what we're going to do tonight for pastors years ago. And when I did, I scored really high on prophetic gifts, teaching gifts, compassion type things, caring for people, right, which all pointed to really what I do, which is pastoring. But I also was a network engineer for a number of years. I enjoy doing tech stuff. I would not want to do it for a living because it stresses me out. You know what I'm saying? So that's a personality issue with me. So my personality, even though I might have equal abilities, maybe in the pastoral things and in the tech side of things, one of them suits my personality a whole lot better. One makes me feel a lot more fulfilled and useful in the body, and one I'll do because I can, but it stresses me out. So we want to find out where your best fit is, keeping in mind that you'll have also a comfort zone, right? But a lot of us, though, live in this black circle of false expectation. And what false expectation is everybody wants to be the pastor because they think that's the gift that gets the attention, right? Well, if I become a pastor, then I've arrived, right? I'm really doing ministry now, which is baloney. Okay? There are people who visit sick people in the hospital who do way more ministry than I'll ever do in a week, but there are some people who have false expectations because of a wrong idea of what's important or valued by God. Don't have those false expectations. I'll give you another example. There are people who think they should sing in the worship team, but they can't carry a tune, right? They don't have the ability to fit their passion, right? So that wouldn't put you in that sweet spot. The problem with false expectation is that sometimes you end up with hurt feelings because you really feel like you really want to do something, and a lot of times you even feel called to it, but you maybe don't have the ability, right? Or haven't yet developed the skills, and maybe there's just a time thing going on here. So try not to have false expectations, right? Try to more ask God, what are my real passions and abilities? Where do those collide, okay? Thomas Edison said, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work, right? We all want to be the pastor. We all want to be the prophet. We all want to be the teacher. We all want to, I call those the sexy gifts, right? That's what everybody wants. So a lot of times we look at other things like, well, hey, we really could use somebody to clean the toilets today. Oh, well, that doesn't excite me nearly as much as, maybe getting up and preaching a sermon. Can I preach a sermon? One of the greatest sins we commit against God is not reaching the potential he has placed in us, what John Maxwell says, right? And if we are looking for the wrong thing with false expectation, we may very well miss the thing that God has really given us gifts, abilities, talents, and passion for. So the goal of the next bunch of pages, okay, is to help you sort of figure this out about yourself, okay? I can't really do it for you. It's to help you. Now, some of you probably have already started some of this at home, but the idea is just answer all of these questions as honestly as you possibly can, okay? And those of you who've ever gone through any sort of like a DISC assessment like this or any kind of Myers-Briggs, or if you've ever taken like a psych profile for an adoption or something like that, or a job, you'll know that you can try to lie your way through it if you want, but you're only hurting yourself. Because then you're going to end up in the black ring of false expectation, I guarantee you, okay? So it's really important to try to be as honest as you possibly can. And every one of these is a categorized thing, right? So there's the D, the I, the S, and the C. Those are all explained later. But we're going to first assess your leadership style, okay? By answering those questions, never, rarely, sometimes, often, always. When you're done, you want to total that number up, and you want to put it on that dash right there next to the word total. And you're going to go through all four of those. And when you're done, what you're going to realize is if you look at this chart on the right where it says understanding your personality, that you're going to gravitate towards one side, right, north, south, east, or west, and probably into one quadrant. And then that's going to help guide you in some later stuff as you read it about what those assessment numbers mean. And it's going to give you some idea of maybe what type of style you have and where you could be the most useful. And it describes it all in the personality descriptions on pages, starting at page 23, all the way through page 26. So this is a little bit long. You don't have to do it right now because you'll never get out of here if we do this right now. All right. I would recommend that you go home and you read it. But if you find that you're really strong on the SD, read this and see if you believe that about yourself. Number one, okay? One of two things is going to be true. It's either true or you're right, one or the other, if you disagree with it. It's possible then that you might need to go back and re-answer those questions and just say, did I really answer them honestly? Okay? Really get a good sense for what this is. None of them is more important or better than the other, all right? So an S isn't better than a CI, or an SC isn't better than a D, that kind of stuff. It's not like that. It's just meant to help you understand, are you direct and decisive? Are you curious? Are you an achiever? Are you a challenger? My son is a challenger, right? He is a DC all the way, all day long. It challenges everything, like it's going on a style, getting on my last nerves. You might be inspiring, an inspiring person. You might be somebody who's good at persuading. Maybe you've got a sales background, okay? You might be somebody who loves people and has the ability to counsel them. Anyway, it's all over the map here. I want you to read about it and just try to learn a little something about yourself in the process. With this one caveat, if I could just say this is just a very, very basic test. It's not going to tell you everything there is to know about you. It's not exhaustive, okay? And it's sort of like, I think it's like, you ever go to like a Chinese restaurant and they got the placemat, right? And you're a rat or you're a sheep or, you know what I'm talking about? And you ever read through some of those and you're like, well, yeah, I'm some of those, but I'm none of these other things, right? Well, sometimes the DISC assessment, it can be pretty accurate, but it can be a little like that too. Not every single thing in the paragraph is really going to describe you, okay? Because it's just kind of general. But then you're going to notice on page 27, under the developing your personality thing, that every personality has its strengths. That's why I say none of them are like better than the other. So it's important to understand how to balance your natural abilities with the natural abilities of other people. Okay, that goes to like how easy it is to work with certain other people for you. Okay, the following information will give you specific areas to focus on as you work with others. Right. So, for instance, if you're a D personality, you're dominant, you're direct, you're task-oriented, you're decisive, you're organized, you're outgoing and outspoken. Right, so that's me. I'm a D, but I'm not outgoing. So there's an example of how it's not all 100%. I'm actually quite shy when I'm one-on-one or in small groups. I guess maybe I could consider myself outgoing and I like to go after my job, okay? But I tend to be those other things, right? So I have to work to listen attentively to others because sometimes I want to do all the talking. That's my wife, okay? I have to learn to support and trust other team members because sometimes I just want to do it all. If I can do it, I'll do it. And sometimes I have to invest in personal relationships. I won't even touch on that. Balancing control and domineering tendencies. My wife said amen to that just now in her mind. She didn't say it out loud. She doesn't want to embarrass me, but she's like, yep. It's something I work really hard at, okay? And I have to work hard to value the opinions, feelings, and desires of other people, okay? Whereas for you, it might come completely natural to do those things, but you might not be a very decisive person. Right? You may have trouble taking charge because maybe you fit in the I, or maybe you fit in the C, or maybe you fit in the S. So we're all a little bit different, but you're going to find that one of these four probably best describes you, okay? And that's not bad. I don't take the fact that I have to work hard to do those things as a bad thing, because if that wasn't my personality, then I wouldn't be task-oriented. I wouldn't be decisive. I wouldn't be able to be dominant in a situation if I needed to. I wouldn't be organized, right? So I need to be those things. But sometimes with your greatest strengths come your greatest weaknesses. Right? And so you just have to learn to work with that, with how God made you, okay? The biggest mistake you can make when trying to take one of these assessments is to think that you can be all the good of all of these. You can't. Maybe if you have multiple personality disorder, You just can't, okay? I can try to be compliant, like a C personality. I feel like I am fairly competent. I am fairly task-oriented, goal-oriented. I am introverted. So I'm a little bit of a mix of those two, the D and the C. But compliance is hard for me. I hate driving the speed limit. You know what I mean? I do, but I just grit my teeth the whole time like, poor people, okay? I struggle with compliance, okay? That's your personality. Let's talk about spiritual gifts, page 28. And again, we're just going to make this real quick tonight so you can go home and just take some of these, start working on them. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these he will do because I am going to the Father. Let's talk about discovering your spiritual gifts. The Holy Spirit is in you, number one. The Holy Spirit is in you. Now, even if you don't consider yourself a Pentecostal, when you're saved, the Holy Spirit becomes a part of your life. He is in you. He wants to give you gifts. He wants to utilize you. The Holy Spirit dispenses gifts to you. And again, just because it may not be one of the 9 big fancy gifts that we talk about all the time on Pentecost Sunday, does not mean that God does not have gifts in mind for you. It could be any number of things. Service gifts. Practical gifts. But we're talking specifically about spirit. Number 3, God's Spirit works through you to produce fruit. He wants to produce fruit, by the way, not in just you, but in the people that you serve in the church. And number 4, his gifts result in greater works through you. And here's kind of what Jesus was getting at that. And I tell this to people all the time. When I'm investing in a new leader or somebody who wants to get into the ministry, what I always tell them at some point in the conversation is, my hope for you is that you will get way better than me at this. That's my goal. Like if you want to go through CAMS and get into preaching and pastoring, I hope that you'll become way better than me at it. That's my goal. That's what Jesus was kind of saying. Not that you'd be better than him, right? But you'll do even greater works than he was doing. He wants to see you utilizing these spiritual gifts for great things. But you are not responsible for the gifts you don't have, only for the gifts God gave you. Why? Because everybody, again, it's just like pastor. Everybody wants to be the pastor. Everybody wants to be the preacher, the teacher, whatever, because that's like the big gift. Well, no, that's not true, all right? Don't worry about what gifts you want. Worry about the gifts God has given you. Okay? It's only when we truly understand that we have a limited time on earth that we'll live each day to the fullest. Isn't that true? Can you imagine you get to the end of this life and you knew God had called you to do some stuff, but you never did it. Well, it's too late now. You know what I mean? And how much fruit could you have produced had you said yes to Jesus instead of been afraid? On these next bunch of pages is a thing called My Spiritual Gifts Assessment. Now, this is if you've been a Pentecostal for more than a few years, you probably have taken one of these before. These used to be all the rage in churches. And this one here, it's not bad. It's fairly detailed for a church kind of survey like this. I think it's got, 72 questions on them. What you're going to do is you're going to assign a number to each block on the left. Never, rarely, sometimes, often, and always. Okay? So, like, for instance, I like organizing services and events. I would put a 3 there for me. I do it because I have to. But I'd really rather just talk with you. I'd rather preach to you, or I'd rather lead you in worship. I don't like organizing services. That's why I do it at 5 minutes to 7 on Wednesday. Not my great. So I put a 3 there, right? Some of you, like Gretchen's like an organizer. She loves organizing. She likes doing event planning. She's actually done that in church before for a paid position. She loves that. Number 2, I love starting new churches. I have a passion for church planters. I'd give that a 5. I have planted a church before, so loved it. It's a big part of my life. Working with my hands is fun for me. I'd put a 4 on that one for me. I can tell when someone's sincere. I would have told you a year ago I'd put a 5 on that. I might put a 2 on that right now. I don't know. So anyway, you're going to, if you're a prayer warrior, you might have a 5 for I pray for the lost daily, right? So just put the number there to what you think it is. When you're all done, you're going to transfer all of those numbers, all 72 of them, to the My Spiritual Gifts Assessment results, okay? So under number 1, I would have put a 3. Under number 2, I would have put a 5, right? So it just depends on what your numbers are. When you're done, you're going to notice that 1 and 25 and 49 are all on the same line together with the total next to them. See how that works? So add those 3. Add 1 and 25 and 49, whatever numbers you put there, and write that total down. Maybe it's like 12, okay? And you'll have 12 for administration. See how that works? And then you're going to write down your numbers for 2, 26, and 50, whatever those numbers are. Maybe it's 16 or something. Or no, it wouldn't be 16. I can't add. Maybe it'd be 15, right? And then you'll have a 15 then for apostleship. Does that make sense how that's working? So that it goes sideways, so not up and down, okay? And all the way through. So there'll be basically 24 results. And then what you're going to see is you're going to have a top 3, right? So maybe your top 3 is discernment and knowledge and prophecy, okay? You're going to go to page 40. Why don't you go to page 40 and just keep your finger here. Go to page 40. You're going to see where it says, my top 3 spiritual gifts. Write those in there, whatever those 3 are. Is that making sense so far? You did the same thing for the DIS and the C, right? It tells you what your main personality is. Does that totally make sense? Everybody confused? Somebody had a question? Oh, I don't have my glasses on. I wouldn't have seen you. All right. Why? How do you know? Now they feel self-conscious. Do you want me to explain it again? Okay. When you take the spiritual gifts assessment and you put a number in the little box on the left, we're there so far, right? You're going to put a 1 through a 5. On page 32, you're going to transfer all those numbers to page 32. You're going to fill it all in. Okay? Does that make sense? Page 32. So you're going to fill all 72 of those numbers in, but then you're going to add them going across in each line. 125 and 49, 226 and 50, 327 and 51. Does that make sense? And then you can put all the totals, and then you're going to have a top 3. And then you're going to transfer those to page 40. Page 40 is where all the action is. Okay? All 5 of these little tests you're going to take all get transferred to page 40. Does that make sense so far? All right. When you move on to page 33, you're going to see understanding your spiritual gifts. In other words, like you may be like, well, I scored really high. Like one of my top 3 is apostleship, but I don't even know what that is. It explains to you that apostleship is the gift of apostleship, is the divine strength or ability to pioneer new churches and ministries through planting, overseeing, and training. It gives you some idea of what that means if you don't understand it. You'll learn about what the gift of intercession, for instance, means, or the gift of leadership means, right? Just in case you don't know what those things are. This is sort of like a key to help you understand the 3 things that you scored the highest in. I think a lot of you, when you do it, you'll start to realize, like, oh yeah, that's me. You know what I'm saying? It'll make sense because you know yourself. All right, so that's spiritual gifts. The next session is defining your passions. Okay, remember that thing we started off with I said, like, you've got to find your sweet spot, right? Remember that part? Finding your sweet spot? If you can get your passions and your gifts and your abilities and all that kind of in the same thing that guides you, that's what this is about. So defining your passions. Passions are just the desires of your heart given by God that compel you to devote yourself, your resources, and energy toward a specific area, not our area of interest or need that makes a difference in the lives of others. Again, like, so for instance, my wife was like passionate about feeding people, helping the poor, that kind of stuff. She's also super passionate about seeing things through the lens of a guest and helping a building be as spot on as she can. She's really passionate about that stuff. Where some of you might be like, well, I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. It's just not your thing. It's like not important to you. That's not good or bad. It just is how God made you, right? So let's discover your passions. Number 1, you have a people passion. Okay, in other words, a particular people in your life that you love being around, or people you love helping. Okay, like I am passionate about young men. Okay, I love seeing young men learn how to live as men of God, learn how to be husbands and fathers in a world that gives them all the wrong messages. Okay, that would rather keep them being little boys for the rest of their lives. I love discipling young men, a passion of mine, which is why I love planning churches, for instance, right? Because that's sort of a young man, young women's game. Okay, so I'm passionate about that. You also have people that you are passionate about. Number two, you have passion for certain issues. Like I said, some people are passionate about recovery groups, or passionate about the abortion thing, or passionate about the transgender thing, or whatever, any number of things, okay? Those are issues. So those are not the same as people, okay? So you're going to take a passion assessment to help you figure that out. Discovering the people you're the most passionate about first, okay? There's 36 different categories of people, but you'll notice there's an other, because not everything, can't put them all in here, right? So read through the list in its entirety and circle the top 3 groups that you enjoy working with the most. And then place these 3 selections in the blanks at the end of the list, where it says my top 3 people passions are. So as you're looking through, I'm just going to keep using myself as an example. I'm looking through this list, right? I'm not passionate about politics, really, or being you know what I'm saying? I'm not passionate about sports, really. I am passionate about spiritual seekers. I am passionate about young marrieds. And I'm really passionate about young families. I'm passionate about married couples. You know what I mean? So I have some things that really, when I think about those things, I get excited. And it makes me want to serve in those areas. And I'm going to try to pick my top 3 if I can. If you could think of another one that's not in this list, just write it in other, okay? And then just write that in one of those things, okay? Make sense so far? Everybody good? And then what are you going to do? Transfer those 3 to page 40. Okay. Then you're going to discover on page 37 the issues that you're passionate about. Okay. If I, again, had to pick mine, I'm passionate about discipleship. I am passionate about abortion. Being anti, by the way, just in case that made you nervous. I'm passionate about church. I believe church is God's plan. I love the church. That's why I've sold my life to it. So those would be probably my top 3. I'm not speaking for Gretchen, but just using her example, she might put family, hunger, reaching the lost. I don't know. She might have 3 of her own. Put whatever your top 3 passions are. Again, if you think about it now, this is really going to give you some guidance, isn't it? Because if you think people, I'm passionate about discipleship. Passionate about children. Oh, that means I'm passionate about discipling children. Maybe I belong in children's ministry. Make sense? And then the next thing is identifying your abilities. Because again, sometimes we have passions, but they don't line up with our abilities. Okay? You might be passionate about the tambourine. Sorry. Beyond your personality, gifts, and passions, you have specific abilities that God has gifted you with. And these might be things that you have a natural propensity towards, or things you have developed in your career. I'm sorry, that's a typo. I don't even know what word that's supposed to be. That's funny. Anyway, but it's just that you've developed in your job, right? Is really what it's saying. You developed in your job or area. I think it means areas of service. You've developed in your areas of service in the past. I'm sure that's what it meant to say. And so I could start catching all these things. Circle that for me. You don't have one? Are you even saved? Why don't you have one? My own wife doesn't have one. She's got me. You read it before. She's such a bad example. You know she's not passionate about? Apparently all in. Oh, snap. Don't take her side, by the way. You'll regret it. I'm just telling you now. You'll so regret that. All right. God has wired you with many talents that make you more capable of fulfilling your God-intended purpose. Okay? There is an element in your talents that is your responsibility. You are supposed to use them. Jesus made it clear in the parable of the talents, the importance of investing your talents and abilities wisely. So go read Matthew chapter 25 and really get a handle on the parable of the talents, because he gives us these gifts, and if we waste them, you know what he's going to say to us? Shame on you. I gave those things to you and you're not doing it. My ability assessment, discovering your talents and abilities. Take a moment to read through the list of talents and abilities. Circle every item where you perceive yourself to have a special ability. That does not mean, just to help you, it doesn't mean you're an expert at it. It just means you have some ability in that, okay? So I would not circle mental health, counseling, social work, medical, nursing, paramedic, legal, law enforcement, landscaping. I wouldn't probably, maybe public relations a little bit. Journalism and writing, I would circle that. I write for a living, okay? Construction, I have some abilities in that, but if I had them all, I wouldn't constantly be bugging Willie. Art and communication, I do have some in that, but not in the area of painting. I do have some graphic design background, so I would circle that one. I'm not a good photographer. I leave that to my children. I'm not a great decorator. I wouldn't do that. Missionary stuff, no. Church planting, yes. Right, I would circle that one. So you just have to kind of go through, and if you've got some experience working with the homeless, circle that one. If you've got experience working with addicts, circle that. If you've got any musical things, circle that. If you know how to fix stuff, even if it's not in the mechanical section, add it to other. Creative, whatever it happens to be. Okay, you might be a good cook, circle that. The church needs good cooks. And then what are you going to do? You're going to transfer your top 5 abilities to page 40. Now, all of page 40 should be filled in by the time you get done with all 5 of those. So you're going to have my main personality, my top 3 people passions, my top 3 spiritual gifts, my top 3 issues passion, and my top 5 abilities. Now, you will then have gone through a huge discovery process about yourself, because what's likely to happen is that you're probably going to be surprised by some of the answers on that list. Right? You might just think, well, I did that at a career before, but I never thought of that as something that could be useful in the church. What I'm hoping to do at the end of all this, if you look at the next steps, right, is when you're done taking all of that stuff, I want you to review the list of team opportunities on pages 44 through 47. And that's kind of at the, it's into the next lesson, the green section, right? But you're going to kind of skip ahead a little bit after you take these things, and you're going to see the team opportunities. And then you're going to see correlation between where your answers are from page 40 and what is needed to do these kind of teams, right? And let me just kind of give you a little quick rundown of where we're at currently, right now at River of Life, because it's all subject to growth and change. We have a hospitality team right now that is, I think, really taking shape. It's going well. And I don't see Melissa. Not here today? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that she's not. But she's taking the reins with the hospitality team, kind of getting that organized and whatnot. That includes people that serve at the front door, people who serve at the sanctuary entrance, greeters and floaters, somebody maybe do umbrella ministry, things like that out in the parking lot, people to serve at the hospitality kiosk. One area you're going to start hearing a whole lot about coming up in the near future is something called the Go team that we're going to begin to develop. Now, the Go team really is also comprised of every other team, but specifically people that are doing things like building repairs, building updates, staging when needed, like if we're going to do something different with the stage, different kind of setup, which, by the way, actually need help because we're going to be creating a drum booth back there so that we can mic the drums and stuff like that. So I need a little bit of building help with that. We're also going to be building a cafe. We're going to need some help building that. But also people to it just helps everything get ready to go on. You have a question? Yes, building the things for the landscaping and all that stuff. It's anybody who does anything to help get things ready to go for Sundays. It could be people who agreed that they're going to make sure that they're the last people out on Sundays so that Pastor Tom and his family doesn't have to be every week. Because, my wife, I just got a huge amen out of my wife there. Yeah, because, we like to go and have fellowship and stuff like that, but we often get trapped being the last people out the door, locking up and stuff like that. There's also a certain amount of personal assisting that I could sure use a little bit of on Sundays, as well as people with doing like roadie kind of work on the platform, and stuff like that. Like ultimately, I would love to not have the pulpit there during worship so that people can come forward and lead worship, and then have people bring it out when it's time to preach, stuff like that, okay? And cleaning, stuff like that around the building, all kinds of stuff. But we're going to talk more and more about that, especially if we get all those projects out of the way. A visitation team is another team that I'm passionate about putting together, because especially when you serve a church that's a little bit aging, a lot of times there's just a lot of need for that, where I can't possibly do that all, right? I try to call people and stuff like that, but I'm already behind on one phone call today just because I had such a busy day. So having a visitation team to make sure that nobody ever goes to the hospital and doesn't get a visit or get flowers or something like that, okay? People to assist in that. Because it's unhealthy when a church believes that it has to be the pastor that does it all the time. That's a really unhealthy situation. And it creates for a lot of discontentment. So I don't want to give you the impression that I don't want to do visitations. I do, okay? But if I can't, that doesn't mean that you weren't visited. If an elder or a board member or a person on the prayer team or the visitation team comes to visit you, right? So I want to begin to manage those expectations right now, because churches that demand the pastor be the primary visitation person tend to be discontented churches, because there's only so much one person can possibly do all the time, right? So that might be a team for you if you're an extrovert, if you're good at making small talk, which I'm not. I'm, by the way, terrible at visitation. I don't even know why you want me visiting. I'll pray with you, but I won't talk much. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm terrible at it. I just admit that I'm bad at it. All right? Pantry ministry, that, of course, is fully functional and working really well. Safety team, which I'm going to be meeting with them tonight, but one of the things you're going to hear me say is I want to add to that team, okay? And an event team, because I've had some conversations recently with folks about some of the events, like the Labor Day thing, and I see a need to develop a team of people that do all of this planning, so that it's not just all on the office staff to do that. You know what I'm saying? That's just not cool. We want to have a whole team to come up with creative ideas of how to do events. We need to think about, right now, we need to think about planning Christmas, okay? So I could really use an event team to help me plan Christmas, because it's way more than just the Christmas Eve service, for instance, okay? Those are serve teams that do service-oriented things. Support teams are things like the admin team, which is bookkeeping and accounting, but we have those things kind of covered right now. But maybe you're good at layout and design or graphics, or maybe you're an artist, okay? I want to talk to you because right now I am primary doing all that, and maybe you've got a networking background, computer background. We could use some help in that department as well, all right? Prayer team is going pretty well. Sandy Clay is now, I think, found her highest passion, because she's been thinking about that as well, like, where are my passions? And she said to me, her exact words were, I'm much more passionate about the prayer team ministry. And I said, well, then that's really what, if you're going to lead something, that's what you really ought to be focused on, is that thing. I mean, so that's going pretty well. The prayer team, by the way, can I just say this as plainly as I can? Don't be offended by this, but I'm pretty picky about who's on a prayer team. Just because you want to be doesn't mean you should be, okay? And starting this next week, you will have to sign a thing saying that if you ever reveal something that was brought to you privately in prayer and confidence, that you are immediately off the team. Okay, so we're going to be doing some prayer team training coming up here real soon, because it's important that those people are trustworthy, okay? And also that they have etiquette up at the altar when they're praying for people. They know what they're doing. So we're going to be training on that. But that team is going well. They're passionate about it. They're praying all the time. I'm watching their banter back and forth, and I'm pleased with that. And then another team that I really would like to see is a follow-up team or connect team. Okay, a follow-up team is really the one to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks, that visitors get a gift, make sure they get a card or a contact in the mail, and they're just good at being welcoming and encouraging, and they remember people's names when they come back, stuff like that, and they're very intentional about that. Okay, creative teams are things like the tech team and the worship team. I know you might not think tech team is creative, but it really is. You got to learn how to hear the music and run sound and how to make things look really nice on the screen. And so I consider those to be creatives. Worship team, we are going to require, moving forward, auditions for that team. So except for drums, if you could play, I want a drummer on Wednesday nights, but you're just in if you want to be. So just saying, generations teams are things like kids teams, all right? Youth team, which that'll be coming, I think soon. I would imagine within a year, we're going to have a need for that, okay, a youth team. Again, those you have to be here for 6 months, you have to be a member, and you have to pass a background check. No pervs allowed. Discipleship team. Is that okay that I said that? I'm sorry. I made a joke to Lucas the other day in our meeting, and he almost fell over in shock. I'm like, well, I have a sense of humor, sorry. All right. Didn't I say in my second week here that church should be fun? Okay, and that if you don't like it, you'll get over it? Right? What? I'm sorry. But it's true. I don't want no pervs on the kids team. Do you? Okay. That even wasn't even humor. Discipleship teams, small groups, ladies ministry, men's ministry, young adults ministry. Well, let's find somebody who says they're passionate about young adults. Let's start a young adult ministry. Pastoral teams would be things like the church council. I like to call them the elders, but whatever term you want to use for that. They are pastoral. Your church council, I'm focusing them right now on being elders. We can talk about finances till the cows come home, but that should be 1% of what we do as elders. We are here to pastor you, and that includes the elder team. They are here to help provide ministry for you and oversee the ministry of the church. They're also here to minister to my wife and I, which they have yet to know. We're going to talk about that, but I consider them a pastoral team. Okay, and of course pastors. I would like to see within a year us have 3 pastors. I would like to see us have a kids pastor, a youth pastor, and then of course me. Eventually even more. Okay. Now to become part of a team, you first have to tell me you're interested. Let me know, or speak to a ministry leader like Sandy or Melissa, or Shane, who has now volunteered to step into the fray with children's ministry and help get that kind of organized and set up. So she's said kind of a similar thing to me about having passion for that. So excited about that. But have a conversation, let us know, and we want to talk to you about it. And here's what we're going to do: is we're going to ask you, what did the assessments tell you? Like, what did you think about all that? And try to help guide you and steer you into the right thing. And then number 3, go to training, right? Again, just because you have a passion about something doesn't mean you're naturally good at it, but doesn't mean you also can't learn it, right? So, for instance, somebody has said to me recently they wanted to learn how to play bass in the band. And I said, well, I'll just teach you. I've done it before. I've taught kids to do it. You can do it, right? So I'm passionate about teaching, and especially younger people, so I'm super excited about that. I will provide whatever training I can. Our ministry leaders will provide whatever training they can. And then number 4, start serving, right? You will grow as you serve. So you don't have to be expert right now. You don't have to be the best at it, right? Just work with a leader and serve and do what you can, and you'll learn and you'll grow. You'll get it figured out, okay? All right, so that's kind of what's going on with teams right now. We'll talk about this more in session 4, okay? But when we meet for session 4, what I want you to do is I want you to have all of those assessments filled out. I want you to have all the results of all those so that when we're talking about this, right, you can start to really put those things together, okay? And hopefully by the end of that session, you'll have a greater idea. But probably the most important outcome of that session, if I could just be straight honest with you, is that you will, if you're not a member, fill out a membership packet and go ahead and we'll get that on file, and then we'll go ahead and plan. If you have not been baptized, we are going to ask that you commit to baptism. It doesn't mean you can't become a member. The way the membership packet states it is, as long as you agree to be baptized at the next available opportunity, we will welcome you into membership, okay? So we will plan a baptism service. I don't even care if there's just one. I've always been willing to do a baptism service even just for one person. I'm totally fine with that. But you just need to let me know, and it'll ask you that question in the packet, okay? So in 2 weeks, I will have those packets here. You can take them home with you. There you go. Does anybody have any questions? By the way, my wife keeps telling me I should ask you if you have questions, and I never do. So I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions? See, I'm that good. They don't